Hello, and welcome back to another episode recap. In this recap video, I'll lay out 5 things that I learned from my conversation with a historical expert. And today, we'll chat about the movie Tolkien, which is, of course, about the life of the author of The Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit, J.R.R. Tolkien. Now, if you're a regular listener to the audio version of the Based on a True Story podcast, you'll know that I had historian and Tolkien scholar John Garth on the show to talk about the historical accuracy of the 2019 biopic simply called Tolkien. John is also the author of the only biography on Tolkien's years during World War I called Tolkien and the Great War. Well, that episode with John was over an hour long, so if you don't have the time to listen to the whole thing yet, well, that's the purpose of this quick video, to relay the 5 key things that I learned from my discussion with John. So let's get started. Number 1, Tolkien's parents both passed while he was still young. The movie changed some things about how Tolkien was left without his mother or father, but it did get some things right. For example, in the movie, we don't ever see Tolkien's father. That would be true for the timeline of the film because, unfortunately, his father fell ill and died soon after the 2 Tolkien brothers were born. That left his mother, Mabel Tolkien, to take care of her 2 boys, Hilary and Ronald, who we now know as J.R.R. Even though the movie would have us believe Mabel's passing was sudden and something the boys were there for, as John explained to me, this is where the movie got that wrong. The timeline was sped up for the film. In truth, Mabel fell ill when Tolkien was 11 years old and spent a lot of time in hospitals as she tried to recover. So it was not without warning like the movie seems to imply, but unfortunately, the end result is similar. Tolkien was left without both parents while he was still young. Number 2, Tolkien started inventing languages as a child. One of the major things that helps sell the realism of the worlds that Tolkien created are the languages he created as well. And as John told me, Tolkien started inventing languages when he was 7 or 8 years old. Of course, they probably wouldn't have been the complex languages that we know of now, but just the mere fact that he started inventing languages that young was something that both surprised and impressed me. I guess he really did have a lifelong passion for languages. Number 3, Sam Gamgee's inspiration. In the movie, there's a character named Sam who is running with Tolkien in the trenches during World War I. Since we know Tolkien would later write about Frodo's traveling partner, Samwise Gamgee, like a lot of people, I jumped to the conclusion that perhaps Sam Gamgee was based on a real person, the one that we saw in the movie. John explained to me that even though Tolkien did not often explain where he found influences for his characters, Tolkien did give some insights into the inspiration behind the character of Sam Gamgee. And that inspiration didn't come from a single person, but rather the privates and his Batman during the First World War. Oh, and a Batman was the term for an officer's servant during the war, not the superhero that you're thinking of when you first hear it. Number 4, the term chatting comes from lice. This isn't in the movie at all, but today we're all familiar with the term chatting. Like right now, you and I are having a chat. Well, I didn't expect to learn this when I went into the interview, but during my conversation with John, he explained that the term chatting comes from World War I. What happened was they had lice in the trenches. Lots of lice. And the dialect term for lice was chats. So, when soldiers would gather around the fire to pick the lice out of their uniforms, they would call that chatting. And of course, while you're around the fire chatting, it's only normal to start having some conversations with other soldiers doing the same thing. So that is how we get the term chatting today, to mean casual conversations. Number 5. Tolkien did not get drunk and start yelling in a made-up language. One scene in the movie shows Tolkien getting drunk and spouting off some made-up language to get the attention of a professor. That scene didn't happen at all, but what really happened was that Tolkien met the professor, Professor Joseph Wright, early on while Tolkien was a student at Oxford. During his time there, Tolkien and Professor Wright bonded over a shared love of languages. John also explained that Tolkien himself made the discovery during the First World War that language and legend were interdependent. With that idea, Tolkien decided to take one of the languages he had invented and create a people to speak that language, the elves of Middle-earth. And well, I think you know the rest of that story. That's all for today, but as I mentioned at the beginning of this video, John and I talked for nearly an hour about the historical accuracy of the movie Tolkien, so we talked about a lot more than I've covered in this video, but hopefully you enjoyed this recap of 5 things that I learned from John Garth about the movie Tolkien. If you want to hear the full interview with John, go check out the audio podcast episode at basedonatruestorypodcast.com/141. Once again, that's basedonatruestorypodcast.com/141. And don't forget, if you want to dive deeper into the life of Tolkien during World War I, there's no better resource to start with than John's book called Tolkien and the Great War, The Threshold of Middle-earth. In the meantime, for more recaps and full-length episodes of Based on a True Story, hit that subscribe button right now. Thanks for watching.